Welcome back to another one of these videos. The videos in which during Banlist season, I decide not to profess what I think will actually happen to the metagame. I'll give you that real quick. It's fine. Diablosis to 1, maybe. But instead, like Prometheus, try to steal fire from the Konami gods to bring a thought experiment to its logical conclusion to see how many cards we can take off the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list before something breaks. If you're watching this on Farfa's stream, I know that critical thinking is probably not your strong suit, so this part's imperative. I don't think these cards should come off. Undeniably, the list of cards I'm about to show you are going to make Yu-Gi-Oh! Absolutely worse if they are legal. I just don't think they'll compromise the list of decks that's currently at the top or the gameplay that we all enjoy as part of the TCG. That said, this ban list season, I set a goal for myself. Can I get 2/3 of the ban list off? I'm happy to say that I accomplished it. Let me show you my madness. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer. I'm aware a significant amount of the cards on the ban list aren't there for power reasons. They're there because they are unfun, or make games take a long time, or are hard to resolve, or are judging nightmares. I don't have room to be picky. I'm removing 121 cards from the ban list. You're gonna see self-destruct button on here. Victory Dragon makes an appearance. Let's begin with the one on screen right now. Archenemesis Protos would undoubtedly be very good in Sword Soul, a deck I'm completely fine existing. Blaster Dragon, Ruler of Infernos, just went to 1 in Master Duel, and I don't think anyone's even read it so much as crafted it. Block Dragon is probably okay at 1. Sure, it enables decks like Emancipator in Master Duel, but I think that's okay. They're a little under the purview of the power level of the current metagame. Djinn Release of Rituals could go to 5 tomorrow, and it wouldn't matter, because ritual spells are such a minus, all of the good ritual decks circumvent ritual summoning entirely, meaning this card really doesn't have a home. Eclipse Wyvern is an unquestionably good card and a way to search better cards, but I don't think it's so good that it's going to cause any problems at 1. Ava is unquestionably good, but at a singular copy, I don't think it's going to be enough to make Drytron competitive against the top tier. Fiber Jar is a very bad card, but it's hard to resolve. Too bad it's on the list. Fishborg Blaster is on the ban list because it doesn't have a hard once per turn, but I think activating its effect 4 or 5 times isn't that big of a deal when so many decks like Synchron do similar things regardless. Gub came off in OCG and it's completely fine. Majespecter Unicorn Kirin is probably fine at a single copy. Masterpiece, the True Dracoslaying King, could go to 3 tomorrow with no changes. Orcust Harp I think is even legal in Master Duel. It's completely fine. Performage Plushfire is unquestionably extremely strong, but the Performage pool is so low that I think giving the Pendulum Soup deck one more piece to play with isn't going to change anything. Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis is part of the worst FTK in the history of time. I'm bringing all the Dragon Rulers off the list for this one, and Redox is the one I am the most concerned about, but I think just a Reborn isn't enough to justify this card being on the ban list. Samara Lotus is legal in Master Duel, part of a terrible FTK. Tidal Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls is a Dragon Ruler that's also a Foolish Burial. It's very, very strong, but I think a singular copy isn't going to break anything. Victory Dragon could come off the ban list any day. It's only on here because of consistency issues with the remainder of the match winners, which all have the text "cannot be used to duel" on the bottom of them. We've got Brilliant Fusion, which is legal in Master Duel at 1. Butterfly Dagger Elma is part of the worst FTK in history. Chicken Game is at 3 in Master Duel. Delinquent Duo, I know I'm not going to sell you on this, is not a particularly good card. Random discard that does absolutely nothing going second isn't exactly where you want to be. There's a lot better cards that do a lot more, and a couple that we've unbanned. Giant Trunade and Heavy Storm are very good cards, but Harpy's Feather Duster is currently legal, and I think that card is absolutely better than Heavy Storm. Giant Trunade is a little different because it enables a couple of loops, but I don't have to find any of those loops to be so unbelievably oppressive that it's going to be a problem. Kaiser Coliseum is completely legal in Master Duel and accomplishes absolutely nothing. Mass Driver is an unsearchable win con for a deck that's already doing unfair things. We took Metamorphosis off for the last Masochist Banlist tournament, and it didn't really accomplish anything. There are some scenarios where you can use a 1 to go into Millenniumizer Strict to insulate yourself against existing setups, which is not particularly great. It also potentially gives you access to some really good cards out of the extra deck, like Last Warrior from Another Planet, but none of them are so game-breakingly powerful that they put you in a position where you're automatically going to win the game. For that, I feel like it's fine at a single copy. Very hard to sell people on Mirage of Nightmare, but I do not think it's particularly good. It's a little slow. It discards the cards in your standby phase. Sure, there are some decks like True Draco that can get rid of it, but at that point, you're like, yeah, I've drawn 2 cards on my 3rd turn, and that's not enough of a payoff that I feel comfortable keeping this on the list forever. Pot of Greed is going to be in every deck. I just thought it would be funny to take off. Snatch Steal, at this point, we have Change of Heart, Mind Control legal. The one that's also an Equip spell probably isn't going to break anything. That Grass Looks Greener is a 2 in Master Duel and not a problem. Zoodiac Barrage is unquestionably extremely strong, but with a very small pool of cards it can actually summon, I think it's completely fine. Last Turn is not a very good card, but is only on the list because it has no problem solving card text and it's a weird alt win. Red Reboot is at 2 in Master Duel and is fine, I suppose. Return from the Different Dimension is a strange card. It can only be activated the turn after it's set, which means you have to set it up and then activate it on your opponent's turn in order to get any value out of it that you wouldn't be able to out of extenders like Kashtira Birth, which are already legal and good. Theoretically, you could do some powerful explosive setups on your third turn if it survives an entire combat step, but I don't think that's particularly likely. Self-Destruct button is not a good card. It just makes games annoying to resolve. Sixth Sense is frustrating, but not good. Trap Dust Shoot is unquestionably extremely strong, but I don't think it's as good as a Pointer of the Red Lotus, which is currently legal. And Ultimate Offering is bad. In the extra, I always thought Colossus couldn't come off. I have softened on it because of Master Duel. I think it's okay. Curious, the Lightsworn Dominion is a lot less good with Fairy Tail Snowband. Elpy is a lot less good with a lot of the powerful cards in Dragon Link Band. Heavymetalfoes Electrumite is definitely extremely powerful, especially when we're taking off cards like Performage Plushfire, but I don't think it's enough to make that Pendulum Soup deck competitive against anything else. If putting up an infinite number of negates was good, there are tons of decks that can already do that. I think Auroradon is fine without Hauken 001. Prankid's Meow-Meow Mu is definitely strong, but I don't think it's enough to compete with the current metagame. Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty, can't get Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. Predaplant Verity Anaconda is actually legal in Master Duel too. Did you know this? No one plays it. Ding Dong and Ebe. So I think Danglong is completely fine. Ebe, I think, is a little less fine, but we were really hard pressed for numbers. She was, I think, the 120th card we brought off. I definitely think there will be some powerful combo decks that utilize this card. I implore you to think of some. Tempest Magician is part of the worst FTK ever. MX Saber Invoker was the literal last card we took off the list. I think this card is incredible and enables a ton of really strong setups. I'm just not exactly sure what they are. Break it, please. You might be seeing the 7 stars on Galaxy Tomahawk and thinking about Kashtira, but in reality, that isn't exactly where Kashtira wants to be. I think this card's fantastic at setting up Auroradon, but I don't think there's a really good payoff for Auroradon without 001. Wind Up Carrier Zenmaity is a very cool card and a cool deck, and I want that deck to be good. Drident is very good and will have an immediate impact on a significant amount of decks, but I think that impact is mostly positive, giving them just sort of a generic out to a bunch of extremely unfun floodgates. Let's go to the unlimited list. Okay, at this point, I think it's clear I've just lost the plot. Let's go through these real quick. The Exodia pieces could go to 3 tomorrow and it wouldn't matter. Exodia's at 1 for lore reasons, not for power level reasons. Agido the Ancient Sentinel. Okay, so all the Ishizu cards are currently limited. I think that we can have a couple of them back. I've picked the worst Shuffler and the worst Miller to include. Armageddonite is limited. I don't really understand why. Theoretically, you can use multiple copies of it in one turn because it's got no hard ones per turn, but if you pull that off, that's fine. Astrograph Sorcerer is a lot better in a world with Heavymetalfoes Electrumite, but I think that's okay. Black Dragon Collapse Serpent is at 3 in Master Duel. Steam the Cloak is currently legal and doing nothing. Cyberjar the same. Cyberstein is like a frustrating payoff to a bunch of combo decks, but you wouldn't play more than one copy of it anyway because those decks draw their entire deck regardless. Jackalope and Chusinoko will make Deep Draw a little bit better, but I don't think so much better that it's going to be competitive with the top tier. Dark Grepher is in the same position as Armageddonite. Dino Wrestler Pankratops is very, very good and will find his way into a ton of sideboards, but I think that the Pankratops gameplay is interesting and engaging enough that it's worth exploring. Exodia is the same as the pieces. Gen X Ally Birdman is part of the worst combo in history. Infernity Archfiend is part of a very interesting combo deck that I would like to see come back into prominence. That creepy little punk, where are you? Lunalight Tiger, I think, is at 3 in Master Duel, but if it's not, it could be. This card, unfortunately, is just not enough in today's day and age. Miscellaneousaurus, same deal. While it does enable some pretty funny setups with stuff like Carbonedon and Ebe the World Chalice Justiciar, I don't think those are particularly good or will be super playable. Morphing Jar could go to 3 tomorrow, no changes. Mudora is unquestionably a huge unlimit and will have ramifications, and for that I am sorry. Moving on, Perform Pal Monkey Board. It's already at 1, and I don't think additional copies of this card really accomplishes anything that 1 doesn't. Phantom Sky Blaster, I still don't understand why it's limited. Red Rose Dragon was on here for like silly Hauk kitchen sink reasons, and I think it could come off very easily. Salaman Great Gazelle could go to 3. Sorry to the top 4 competitor at YCS Lima. I think this deck is not particularly good. Terratop will be splashed in a lot of decks alongside Takatomborg to make an early MX Saber Invoker. I just want to see that happen. Spiral Quick Fix could come off, as could any Spiral card as long as Master Plan is still banned. Substitute is completely fine without Ronin Totem. Tempest Dragon Ruler of Storms is the worst Dragon Ruler in the history of time, and White Dragon Wyvern Burster is at 3 in Master Duel. Card Destruction is not a very good card. It is a -1. It's good for deep draw, but not better than any of the other existing deep draw tools. Card of Demise is decent. It's got this weird prohibitive clause on it where you can't activate a second card, which is fine. It's part of a bunch of decks that draw a significant amount of cards over the turn. I don't think moving it from 1 to 3 would really change anything. Same with Chain Strike. Chain Burn is going to live or die die based on other reasons, not the frequency with which it can draw this card. Change of Heart could probably go to 3, though a lot of people will play it. Divine Wind of Mist Valley is part of the worst FTK ever. Draco Face Off is another pendulum tool I'm comfortable giving them. Dragonic Diagram is an incredibly powerful card for a number of decks, and I think we'll see some amount of play in a post-unhit universe, but I am comfortable with those decks being playable. Final Countdown is the worst win con of all time. Gateway of the Six, another awful FTK tool. It's got a Searcher now. Why is it limited? Gold Sarcophagus. It's like a way to get a card into the Banish Zone, which some cards let you access. It's like a hop, skip, and a jump into a Rhoda, which is not good enough for it to be limited, I believe. Infernity Launcher, moving this to 3 will make Infernity immediately playable, but I want to see that happen. Instant Fusion is probably a lot less scary now that we limited the best thing that you can do with it. Into the Void. Obviously, these deep draw spells, you don't want a critical mass of them because then a deep draw deck with 100% consistency develops. We are dangerously close to that, but I'm running out of cards to take off. Magical Midbreaker Field is terrible. Mind Control is in the same position of Change of Heart. Monster Gate, not very good, as is Reasoning. These two cards are part of like all of these weird mill your whole deck strategies that are just terrible anyway. Monster Reborn, no one plays this at 1, could probably move to 3. One Day of Peace, same with the other deep draw tools. 1 for 1, I don't understand why this card is at 1. Theoretically, you can activate more than 1 over the course of the turn, but to get what? There's not like a 1-star monster that wins you the game on the spot. Reinforcement of the Army, I was thinking about this for a while. Why isn't this at 3? Do we just think that that's a too powerful of a toolbox to access? Too consistent, some decks would make it. I mean, Sky Striker is going to love this, and they'll like some other stuff later on as well. Sekka's Light could go to 3, no problem. Set Rotation is definitely very powerful, but we were running out of cards to remove. Mecha Hornet Drones and Mecha Multi-Roll are probably okay. They don't change the core gameplay loop of Sky Striker, which I don't think is enough to keep up with the modern metagame. Slash Draw is part of the worst FTK ever. Spellbook just came to 1 and it did nothing. Upstart Goblin could go to 3, though people would play it. And Magical Explosion could go to 3 because if you're drawing their entire deck, there's another way to win the game. In the extra, cards like Gem Knight Master Diamond could come off. This will make Gem Knight FTK playable, but I don't think particularly good. Striker Dragon is currently limited because of arrow reasons. Like now it can point to Pisty. That's completely fine with me. And Moot if we're unbanning Elpy. Ancient Fairy Dragon is rotted. Psyframe Lord Omega is part of some FTK style setups that I think are not particularly good anymore. TG Hyper Librarian is not going to make any difference at 2 or 3 copies. Beatrice Lady of the Eternal I think is already good at 1. 2 and 3 only opens up Beatrice Control, a deck that is not strong. Daigusto Emerald, I still don't understand why is on the list, and Leerless Garecital Starling is semied. We're also unlimiting Time Seal, which is bad, Malicious because I like the card, and Pot of Desires because the difference between 2 and 3 Pot of Desires I think doesn't really matter. So there it is. 2/3 of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list wiped clean. Personally, I think that these won't change the top decks. I still expect Kashtira, Sprite, and Naturia Runic to be the best options in this post-ban list environment. But if you don't think so, as ever, you are welcome to prove me wrong. On my Twitter this Friday, for which there is a link in the description, I will be announcing a tournament. A tournament to determine if this list has finally ruined Yu-Gi-Oh! Once and for all. Take the next few days to brainstorm. Think of what exactly could be broken under this rule set and then break it. Then, when I unleash the floodgates, show me. Post a list that utilizes the above unhits and does something absolutely heinous. I'll be selecting a number of those lists and throwing them into a no-holds-barred, single elimination bracket to determine what decks are the best up against some of today's titans. Quick caveat here, every single time that I do this, a lot of people just show up with their pet deck that includes additional copies of consistency tools that I've unhit. I'm not going to pick your Dark Magician deck that's now playing 3 copies of Upstart Goblin. Get creative. I expect blood. I expect carnage. But more than anything else, I expect to be proven right once again. Try as I might, I simply can't kill Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's your job to prove me wrong.